So chapter 12, verse 19 to 29.
Yeah,
Um, there we go. I put it in the chat. Peace be upon you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Congratulations on the Ramadan so far and the Night of Destiny. And we recorded our Night of Destiny, and we can share the link for people to listen to. But for now, we're going to start, God willing. Um, this is chapter 12, verse 19 through 29. It's loaded in the chat. Go ahead. Secret you got from Satan the Rejected. Farhana, are you going to read?
Oh, I was muted, sorry. Okay. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Rabbi Auzubika min hamazati shayatin wa auzubika rabbi an yahdurun bismillahim. Surah 12 verse 19. A caravan, subtitle Joseph is taken to Egypt. A caravan passed by and soon sent their waterer. He let down his bucket, then said, "How lucky! There is a boy here." They took him along as merchandise, and God was fully aware of what they did. They sold him for a cheap price, a few dirham, for they did not have any need for him. The one who bought him in Egypt said to his wife, "Take good care of him. Maybe he can help us, or maybe we can adopt him." We thus established Joseph on earth, and we taught him the interpretation of dreams. God's command is always done, but most people do not know. When he reached maturity, we endowed him with wisdom and knowledge. We thus reward the righteous. Subtitle: God protects the believers from sin. The lady of the house where he lived tried to seduce him. She closed the doors and said, "I am all yours." He said, "May God protect me. He is my Lord, who gave me a good home. The transgressors never succeed." She almost succumbed to him, and he almost succumbed to her, if it were not that he saw a proof from his Lord. We thus diverted evil and sin away from him, for he was one of our devoted servants. The two of them raced towards the door, and in the process she tore his garment from the back. They found her husband at the door. She said, "What should be the punishment for one who wanted to molest your wife, except imprisonment or a painful punishment?" He said, "She is the one who tried to seduce me." A witness from her family suggested, "If his garment is torn from the front, then she is telling the truth, and he is a liar. And if his garment is torn from the back, then she lied, and he is telling the truth." When her husband saw that his garment was torn from the back, he said, "This is a woman's scheme. Indeed, your scheming is formidable." Joseph disregarded this incident. "As for you, my wife, you should seek forgiveness for your sin. You have committed an error."
God bless you. Thank you so much. So we read from chapter 12, verse 19 through, I'm sorry, was it verse 19? Yeah, 19 through 29. Sister Farhana, thank you so much. Did you have any questions or comments about the verses you read, Farhana?
I just wanted to quickly share that I love the fact that, I mean, from his story, we learned that God really does protect us. Even though we are human beings, we can sin, we can be tempted, but mashallah, God did show him a sign and he did refrain himself from going ahead with sinning. That's like such beautiful thing to see, that God's support is always with us. That's all.
Thank you so much. Does anyone Anyone have any questions or comments about the verses that were read?
A comment. We talked about it last week, but it's this distinction, of being buried versus planted. Joseph is at the bottom of the well, and you see this theme, right, of God's prophets and messengers and the believers being in what appears to be, in a dead state. This is realistically, from God's perspective, this is them being planted. That God has, great things in store for them. But from if you saw Joseph at this cross section of life, you'd be like, oh man, God has forsaken this dude. He's done for, and not see kind of the bigger picture of God's plan. Anyone else have comments or questions from the reading? So we read from 12:19 through 29. So
Yes, and we also talked about it last week, about divine intervention and if it's possible to turn 180 while going for committing a sin. And it definitely is, and there's a verse that proves it.
Thank you. I just want to say, Sister Shakara, you were making noise, so I muted you. But if you would like to speak, please, you can unmute and speak. Otherwise, please remain muted. Go ahead, Brother Ibrahim.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you and Ramadan Kareem. I just want to say that it is sad to notice that not just believers, children of prophets would scheme such an evil scheme against their brother. They should show us that because we are believers, some of us could be weak by, in their heart to want to commit such a similar or such a heinous crime against humanity, and yet still believe that they could be righteous. So they are not in control. If a believer would be seen committing evil, he or she should know that he is being controlled by the devil. And for him to think that while committing evil, he could be a righteous person, I think it is not a good thought for any one of us to think that way. Righteousness should be our watchword and must be what we would continue to do in our life to make it to heaven. We know that whatever happens to Joseph is designed to happen because God has already, from the inception. Just look at Yusuf's age. He was just a young teenager, and God blessed him with such a beautiful destiny. And yet, because it is God's ordained promise, it must be fulfilled, despite all the challenges he faced in life with his own brother. So please, as believers or submitters, we must be careful of what we do with our lives so that we will not fall victim of such heinous crimes or any kind of evil scheme. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much. I wanted to make a comment about chapter 12, verse 22. So in verse 22, it says, when he reached maturity, we endowed him with wisdom and knowledge. We thus reward the righteous. So here, the word maturity is used, and we're kind of familiar with. We've seen this before. We're familiar with this word. The same word is used in 46:15 for maturity, and this has come up in the past where the concept of the age of 40 is two conditions. It's reaching maturity and reaching the age of 40. And so, a lot of people make the argument that that the maturity is the age of 40, but we see, for example, in this verse, and also verses related to orphans, that the maturity there is talking about mental maturity and not the age of 40 is not the maturity, basically, is what I'm trying to say in Ashadu. So yeah, I just thought this was more evidence for that. The other thing I thought was interesting is that it names the currency of the contemporary, or of that contemporary era. So, verse 20, it says they sold him for a cheap price, a few dirhams, for they did not have any need for him. That's interesting because even today, dirham is it's the currency of the UAE, the name of the currency of the UAE, and I guess other countries, like Muslim countries or Arab countries. So I thought it's interesting that it's naming the currency here, and I guess a question is it talking? It doesn't really matter, but it is kind of interesting. Is it talking about dirhams as as in during the life of Muhammad's dirhams or during the life of Joseph? Yeah.
So there's actually, I don't want to say controversy, but this is one of the points that people try to point out to say, look, the Quran is flawed. And the argument they make, they say back then they didn't have coinage, right? They had bullion. And dirham comes from akmaz, if I'm not mistaken, which is a coinage, right? But the funny thing is, if you look at the root of dirham in Arabic, and I'll link to it, it means both coins and the physical bullion, the weight. And there's another indication here. If you read the verse, it says for a few dirhams, and the word for few is not qalil. It's a different word. It's bakhs, and bakhs means kind of like something paltry, but it's used one other place in the Quran. That's in Surah 7, verse 85. It's literally talking about cheating people out of physical weight, because back then they didn't have, again, coins. It was a bullion was determined by weight. So I'm going to put in the verse, and it says, to Midian we sent their brother Shweb. He said, "Oh, my people, worship God. You have no other God beside him. Proof has come to you from your Lord. You shall give full weight and full measure when you trade. Do not cheat." And that's the word you'll see. It's the same word that's used in Surah 12, verse 20. The people out of their rights. And it's talking about a physical weight. So these concepts are called anachronisms, and people they have field days trying to find the anachronisms in the Quran, and they say, look, the Quran is historically inaccurate. But what's funny is every single time without fail, when you research this stuff, you see that like not only is the Quran historically accurate, it leads people on this breadcrumb to make them feel confident that it's like, oh, you got us, right? That it's wrong. Just to bring out people's true conviction. I'm putting in an article that addresses, I think there's like 10 of them that I bring up, showing how the Quran is historically accurate.
Assalamu alaikum, brother dude. In addition to what you're saying, pointing out that the Quran is historically accurate, whenever I read an initial surah, and Surah Yusuf is an initial surah, Alif Lam Ra, in my reading, as I'm reading it, like the example you're bringing up here, you're saying that there are other words that could have been used to express coinage or currency, correct? But as insignificant as it may seem, the word in verse 20, darahim, right, contains a ra.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if that wasn't in there, wouldn't that not invalidate the code in that surah? It contains a ra, right? The number. Absolutely. You see what I'm saying? These are examples of the perfection of the Quran, of God is knowing all things. He's omniscient. He's all knowing, all powerful. And that this is just one among a number of examples in the Quran where you find, for example, words are spelled differently or a different word is used. And it is the spelling is consistent with the code. As we know in the Quran, for example, the word Becca is used instead of Mecca. I believe that's Surah Baqarah. Am I correct? What we find that in Surah
Three.
Yeah,
Baqarah
that's
Surah 3.
correct.
I think
Chapter
it's
3.
396 or 97.
I think it is 396, yeah.
396. Okay, thanks for right. And we know that in that surah we got what Alif Lam Mim. Is that an Alif? See, I'm
Yes,
talking
yes, that's
Alif
correct. You're
Lam Mim,
correct.
right? So
Yes,
if the
yes.
word Mecca had been used, it would have invalidated the count of the initials in the code in the surah. These are just our overwhelming proofs. You see that the Quran is authored by God. It amazes me. One other thing that I like to share that we know, for example, in Surah 27, this isn't about the initial, but this is about the Basmalah. It never ceases to overwhelm me and awe me that when Solomon wrote that letter to the Queen of Sheba, and he wrote the Basmalah in the beginning of the letter. I say to myself, if I'm writing a note to someone, I'm writing a letter. But here we have, perchance, Solomon writes a letter and he puts the Basmalah on top of it, only for what to happen? For it to be narrated in the Quran, what Solomon wrote at the top of a letter. And that proves to be the missing basmalah in the Quran. Praise to Allah, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah. I just want to point out that these are part of the proofs of the Quran, even though they have to do with the wording in the text. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for everyone that joined, we're in chapter 12, verse 19 through 29. I also wanted to comment on, did we already read the footnote of 23, Peter? No, we didn't. I can read it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it says, Joseph worded this statement in such a way that the governor's wife thought he was talking about her husband, when in fact, he was talking about God. And the verse said, the lady of the house, that God protects the believers from sin. The lady of the house where he lived tried to seduce him. She closed the doors and said, I am all yours. He said, may God protect me. He is my Lord, and who gave me a good home. The transgressors will never succeed. Now, the next verse, it says, she also succumbed to him, and he also succumbed to her. If it were not that he saw a proof from his Lord, we thus diverted evil and sin away from him, for he was one of our devoted servants. So he saw proof from God. So this tells me we need to keep our eyes and ears open. That if we may be just doing something wrong, God is so merciful, he can show us signs and proofs to divert us away from sin. So look how many ways God is doing, making these things in our favor. So we can seek refuge. We already have the list of commands in the Quran, the sins we need to avoid. We have them in the Quran. On top of that, we can seek refuge and God from Satan rejected, and we have multiple ways of doing this. On top of that, God gives us signs. If we're getting close to sin, he gives us signs. There's guardrails. Hey, this is something you need to pay attention to avoid, right? So all of these elements stack things in our favor. We just need to be conscious. We need to apply and need to be conscious so we can avoid the sin and earn the righteous credit. And I think even avoiding the sin in many situations is earning the righteous credits because you're choosing to side with God. And that is soul-saving practice, soul-saving behaviors. Does anybody else want to make comments?
I'll add something else. It's the second part of verse 20. It says, "For they did not have any need for him." One thing that's worth when we're reading this chapter to see, everyone who Joseph has an interaction with is always gauging his value on what he provides for other people, right? Rather than what his intrinsic value that God has given him. These people, they see no value in him. The way that they're describing, he's useless. He's some child they smuggled him in, sold him as for a cheap price. They lack to see the value that God saw in him. If you see the value that God sees in this child, benefit he's going to have for humanity, these merchants, they couldn't see it. They didn't realize what they were holding on to, the blessing that this child was. And oftentimes, since this, this happens, this is for something for us to reflect on our own lives. Like how many people they look at any individual and they say, "Oh, this guy has no value. There's no benefit. What do I get from this guy?" And they don't realize, like, look, the fact if you're a true believer, the benefit that gives to society is something that's immeasurable. It's so huge that God is willing to forego punishment on a society if there's one believer in that society. So it's a way of a perspective. These people that Joseph is engaging with are looking at things in this like very worldly perspective, and they're not seeing the bigger picture. And it's fascinating because in the following verses, we thus establish Joseph on earth. You would think, being left for dead, thrown into a well, sold into as a slave, that's what is required to be established on earth. God sees the big picture that these people just are not capable of seeing.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about the verses read? Go ahead.
Peace be upon you all, brothers and sisters. Mashallah, some great comments. I wanted to add that we also see how we've talked a little bit about how God protects the believers, and I think we also see how God is running everything, that during this whole journey, which could have been very dangerous and very harmful for Joseph, how God protected him, that he controlled who passed by, when they passed by. I mean, he could have been left there. Who knows? He could have, he could have, just been left there, and nobody passed by for a long time, and then he would have perished. But God controlled that a caravan passed by, and who they were, and who bought him. And during this whole process and journey, although it had its challenges, he was under God's protection. And it shows how God controls everything and protects the righteous. And it's heartwarming that, we just need to be with God and do our part, and the rest God takes care of. Thanks.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Salam. To add to one comment actually on verse verse 23. So we see that God protects Joseph. Even we see in 24, she almost succumbed to him, and he almost succumbed to her. And if it were not that he saw proof from his Lord. And on 23, we see that Joseph is praying to God. So how I see is that we can't take God's mercy for granted. So we need to make our efforts and make the decision as well to worship God alone. We can't just take saying, "Oh, whatever I do, God will protect me," kind of thing. So we need to make efforts. And like, for example, we see Joseph said, he said, "My Lord, protect me." So even though Joseph made the prayer, he was weak and he almost succumbed. But then God answered his prayer and he protected him. So just want to add the point saying that we need to make our efforts to worship God, and inshallah God will protect us throughout.
That's a really good point. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about these verses?
Can I just say, all this message that we are reading is a reflection of what we should do with our life. I think the believers are born, not just made. God has always designed, and He knows those who would, always live a righteous life based on the commandments He gives to them. So we read the Quran, we were choosing to be believers. We can remain guided by God's grace if we continue to hear His message and see all the examples in the Quran, as a way to, be like those who were guided and protected by God. Inshallah. Thank you.
Wonderful. And the way that works is basically if there are no more comments, then we can read the next batch of verses.
Bro,
But
come on, man. We're only three verses in from the 11 we read. I wanted to comment about 22. It says, when he reached maturity, he endowed him with wisdom and knowledge. We thus reward the righteous. One of the things that God says in the Quran more valuable than any blessing is wisdom. God is telling us that the remedy or the protocol to be able to gain wisdom is through righteousness. If we read is it 269? Right, wisdom is a great treasure. He bestows wisdom on whomever he chooses, and whoever attains wisdom has attained a great bounty. Only those who possess intelligence will take heed. It gives us the exact thing we need to do if we want to, God willing, increase in wisdom and knowledge. One other verse is 31:38. It says, "This is a proclamation for the people and guidance and enlightenment for the righteous." Oftentimes people they go in reverse. They think, oh, first I'm going to go seek knowledge and wisdom, then I'll gain righteousness. It's like, no. First seek righteousness, then God will bestow upon you the wisdom and knowledge.
And I think it's really important to note on wisdom. So you have the knowledge, but the wisdom is the ability to know what to do with that knowledge. Right? So that's very significant. I also had a question. Verse 24, what does it mean she almost succumbed to him? She's the reason I'm asking is because this seems to be a mutual. This seems to be her initiation. She's pushing for it. So how is it that she almost succumbed to him? Where when it says he almost succumbed to her, I see that as in she's coming after him and he's tempted and he's considering it, but then he's diverted away and he doesn't engage.
It's like, think of it this way. You ever see the movie? They have this long glance, and then someone goes in for the kiss or something like that. I kind of see it in that even in her actions, she's being refrained from what she's permitted to do, meaning that she can get all the way close to the crossing that threshold. There is an actual physical kind of a intimacy, but she's being refrained from that crossing that threshold to the point where it's like, look, this is a test for Joseph. It's not a test for her. She's already failed. She can get as close as possible, and then in a effort to try to get Joseph away from righteousness. There's another lesson here too. I mean, there's so many lessons. The thing is, once you have righteousness, this is what Satan wants to take away. if he can remove our garments of righteousness, we become vulnerable to his schemes. We become vulnerable to his disasters. So he has to entice us to want to, on our own volition, remove our garment of righteousness, just like he did for Adam and Eve. So he's going to, tempt us. He's going to put everything in front of us, but he's not allowed to cross that barrier until we basically, on our own volition, cross that barrier.
So Jerry put the definition in the chat. I'm assuming this is the actual definition. He says succumb is failure to resist pressure, temptation, or some other negative force. And I'm sure we've all experienced some level of succumbing in our life. When it comes to sin, we just give in, it's okay. I have to actually make a confession. I did a white lie recently, and it wasn't bad. I didn't hurt anybody, but white lies are not good. And just in that situation, I don't know, I just kind of put on the spot, and I just said a white lie. And again, I guess it hurt myself, right? Because it's a sin, but we have to be honest. What I'm trying to say is, in that situation, you do just kind of give in, and we shouldn't give in to sin. We have to be strong enough to say, no, I'm just not gonna, I'm not gonna sin, and overcome that. That's really difficult, but it is something to practice and learn to do. Is is be able to just not succumb to sin, whatever situation comes up. You put in, God allows us to put in these situations as tests, and so we need to develop the ability to remain steadfast in the face of these temptation situations.
Well, I had something else. Oh, go ahead, brother.
Okay. I was down to maybe 29. This governor's wife, he could not agree with her, and he tried to run away from her. And just at the door, the husband was there. He agrees with her, and they didn't know that the husband is coming, and he caught them on the act. There is no way that because he was righteous and guided by God, he ran to the door, and that will come from the woman, from the wife, was just to try to defend, pushing a false accusation on Joseph. The judgment day, when she said,
Brother Ibrahim, your sound is broken. Unfortunately, we cannot understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
I heard your sentence.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, brother.
Give it a go. Let's see if it works this time.
What I'm trying to say is the guilt was passing judgment immediately so that they can be defended or protected by their husbands or by the law or whatever. But here, God intervenes to sort. Verse 25, she said, what should be the punishment for one who wanted to molest your wife? Except imprisonment or a painful punishment. She has already, she's trying to already pass a judgment that should be meted on Joseph. But God, defended him. He said, she is the one who tried to seduce him. And they have to go to the court, kind of, And immediately, members of her family were the one who passed the right judgment, and Joseph was saved. Otherwise, in other places, if such a woman who is honored, maybe as the governor's wife, the society will try to protect her and, punish the innocent one. So Uh, this is to say that also there should be always the right judgment on the innocent soul, so that there will be free, um, a society that is free from injustice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. God bless you. For everyone that joined, peace be upon you. We read chapter 12, verse 19 through 29. We're talking about the verses. We got to verse
I'll make a-
24. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments. The one is in 24. It says, "If we're not that he saw a proof from his Lord." What's interesting with the word proof in this sense is more akin to like evidence. It's not like proof like we see bayinat or proof as in ayat. It's the word is borhan, which means like, hey, someone has provided evidence. My understanding from this, I tie it back with where it says we taught him the interpretation of dreams. My understanding of the interpretation of dreams is that Joseph was able to see these narratives. He sees these things, forming, happening, and this is beyond just the purely the interpretation of someone who has a dream. He sees the scheme that the devil's trying to pull. It's kind of like a magician, where all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, okay, hey, this is how I'm being conned. This is how I'm being played. Then all of a sudden it loses its effect. It's no longer an organic thing. Imagine if someone comes up to you immediately, is like, oh, hey, and they try to swindle you on something. Once you pick up what the ruse is, what the con is, that luster, that ability, that temptation, it disappears. It's no longer has that kind of effect on you, and that's kind of how I interpret this. Is that Joseph picked up on kind of what the devil's scheme was, and it's at that point that he leaves. Now, what's interesting here is wife when she says, "What should be the punishment for the one who wanted to molest your wife, except imprisonment or a painful punishment?" A just society would say, "Well, look, that's what you want the punishment is. So let's figure out who's actually at fault." And once they realized that it was her scheme who was behind this, punishment should apply to her. No different than when Joseph asks his brothers, "What should be the punishment for the one who we find the king's cup with?" But it shows that there is some how do you put it, injustice in the society. Like that there, despite the fact that ended up working in Joseph's favor, that they even allowed it to go to that level, and then let alone that they know that this woman and the women in general are scheming against him, they still throw him into prison. And to me, it makes me think, when it says that there was a famine coming, was this because of these, these signs of injustice within the society, that God was going to say, look, you're going to treat the people unfairly. This is the punishment. Oh, you're going to redeem yourself? Okay, I'm going to give you a solution by which you're not going to be impacted by this. I kind of see that bigger narrative here. I'll take a pause if someone else wants to comment.
Peace be upon you guys. Can hope my voice is coming out good. But peace be upon you guys. I'm looking at 1229 and no, sorry, 1228, and it's interesting because the husband says, says, when her husband saw that his gun was struck from the back, he said, "This is a woman's scheme. Indeed, your scheming is formidable." And I was wondering, like, why does he say this is a woman's scheme, right? And then I just kind of like reflected a little bit, and then I went back to so you look at 1224. It seemed like both of them almost came to each other, so it was like a mutual thing. You know what I mean? Except that Joseph saw a sign, and then he decided to go back. But as far as the desire, it was kind of mutual, from what I understand. Yet, when they're caught in the situation, just look at the choice of words of the wife. She says, "What should be the punishment?" So she sees her husband. She's caught with her hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. And what does she do? She says to her husband, "What should be the punishment for the one who wanted to molest your wife, except imprisonment and painful punishment?" And it's just the choice of wording, because Joseph, he says, "No, she's the one who tried to seduce me." He didn't say, "No, she tried molesting me." Obviously, because number one, in society, it's not really like, even though when you think about it, they actually were. The molestation was happening on the other side. Joseph was rejecting advances, and she kept pursuing and pushing it, so this was sexual harassment, and she literally quite lunged at him and grabbed him, so if anything, she should really be around. But I don't know, if I wonder if part of the lesson here is that um, in general, women tend to be more emotional than men. They have a better grasp of like emotional intelligence than men in terms of, okay, what affects people's emotions, how are people feeling, and things like this. And sometimes women will use, men and women endowed with different qualities. Sometimes men abuse their qualities, and women can abuse their qualities that they've been given. And sometimes women will use emotions to try and get out of or basically manipulate a situation. Kind of like men will use their power or whatever to manipulate a situation as well. It goes in both directions. That's kind of what I see here, is that her choice of wording was deliberate to try and invoke or solicit like an emotional response from her husband. You know what I mean? But then the evidence is spoke against it and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know what you guys would think about this, but it's something I kind of noticed.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, that the family member says, it seems like kind of an arbitrary condition. If his garment is torn from the front, then she is telling the truth, and he is a liar. And if his garment is torn from the back, then she lied. Then he's telling the truth. And I always thought about this, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong. I always thought that if you are trying to run away, or trying to get away, and then they grab you from the back of your shirt, that's going to rip. But if you are trying to get at somebody, they're going to rip from the front of the shirt. And I don't see how that's 100% going to be accurate, but I thought
okay?
It's like a general kind of guideline.
Yeah, because he was saying that, hey, she came on to me, I was trying to leave, I was trying to run away. Well, if that's the case, then your government will be ripped from the back, and then he's trying to molest me, so he's forcing his way onto me. So he would be attacking her, I guess. You know what I mean? And she would be too weak to run away or something. I guess because from what I understand, that's what she was trying to portray. Was like, this guy was trying to like attack me. You know what I mean? Hence the whole like, what was the punch for someone who tried to like molest your wife. She was trying to portray it in like a sexual assault kind of a case. Like he attacked me. You know what I mean? So no, she came on to me. You know what I mean? It's interesting. They're both portraying it in a different way. She's portraying it in more of I'm a victim, and he brutally attacked me, to her husband, and Joseph is saying, hey, like, no, she came on to me.
Yeah,
And
that's what woman's scheming is.
That's what I think is that she was playing to her husband's emotion. Yeah.
Woman's scheming is she goes on to a man, gets a man to have sex with her, and then she changes her mind, and then she says, oh, he raped me. That would be a woman's scheme. A man can't do that to a woman.
Yeah.
Only one way.
Yeah, Brother Ilham, I don't think him trying to succumb to her means that he's in agreement with her. But no, human tendency sometimes when a man and a woman are together, the kind of the devil would want to, entice him to go in for it. But because he's a believer and he's being guided by God and protected by God, so that his spirit was stronger than the weakness of the body, and he tries to, stay away from that evil act. Because in the first place, he said God gave him a home, and there is no way he would betray his soul by doing what is evil and sin. So I think it's with God's protection. And the believers, all of us, wherever we are, not just on, sexual whatever, even when we go out to commit, anything that is not good, that is sinful, immediately, when you want to do anything that is sinful, God will remind you, this thing is bad, this thing is sinful. You have been reading the Quran. God will always be there for you. So the best thing to achieve this greatness is to praise God and say thank you for reminding me, thank you for helping me. Then stay away from it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Peter, I think you had a comment. You were trying to say something.
I had a couple just tidbits. One, it's interesting that look, this is a witness from her family. There's already inherent bias in this. It just happens that, look, despite that, it ended up in the favor of Joseph. And for me, the bigger picture here is it doesn't matter who's against you. If God is for you, you're going to succeed. And we have two contrasting examples here. One is, this person that, in my opinion, comes up with this cockamamie, reason to try to find out who's at fault. I can think of a million reasons why, someone's shirt can be torn from the back or the front, and why, they would be the perpetrator versus the victim. It's a very weak form of reasoning, but it happened to work out in Joseph's favor. And what we see later on is that despite the evidence, they still throw him into jail. This indicates to me is like, look, God is the one who's controlling the outcome. God could have it where this weird loophole works out in your favor, or God can have it where you have all the evidence on your side, and He still chooses for you not to basically, quote unquote, be vindicated at that time. And that's really what it comes down to: is do we submit to God under all conditions? If Joseph only submitted to God when things worked out in his way, he complained to God, or he rejected God when it didn't, then he's not going to be a true believer. You have to be tested with both sides of that spectrum. When things work out in our favor, when they don't. At the end of the day, God is the one who's doing everything.
Mashallah, some great comments. I wanted to chime in on a few things as well. So first, this thing about actually, first let me follow up on mashallah, the comment that was made, and it's very interesting that God uses that same situation, that imprisonment, which was mashallah, like it was said, it was an injustice. It was a great injustice, but Joseph in this case submits, and he continues worshiping God alone. He's even giving God's message in the prison. And God uses that same situation to elevate him to a very high position. So when we do what we're supposed to do, we don't know what the outcome of that is going to be, how God can use that. Mashallah, one of the submitters has this saying that God can use anything for our own good. And we know that God is most gracious, most merciful. And so whatever is happening, if we are on God's path, we're believers or on God's path, that there's a blessing there, whatever it is. Even if it's a consequence, it's good for us to be purified and to pay here. And it may not be, it may be a blessing in disguise, or educational disaster where we can learn from that, or there may be some wisdom there that we don't see, or a test through which we can learn and get stronger. The second one I'll just make quickly, that when the husband says this is a woman's scheme, my understanding of that is that he realizes, like with the evidence that the shirt is torn from the back, that it's his wife that has kind of schemed this, and rather than Joseph being the perpetrator. Thanks.
I had a question about verse the verse about the witness. Why is the family member here considered a witness? I didn't understand fully. What does the word witness denote in this verse? I'm talking about verse 26.
Yeah, I think it's like a big house, you know what I mean? And then like people are on the stairs peeking or whatever, like they hear a commotion, you know what I mean? Like sounds like there was like a tussle, you know what I mean? And they probably saw from across the
Oh,
room or
so
something
you're
like that.
saying
Like, yeah, like this is he's a governor. He's a very wealthy man, you know. So I imagine he has a good sizable home by the sounds of it. If there's other people, and you know what I mean, because she's not gonna do this like. If there are like a bunch of people in the room, I don't think she's doing. I don't think she's doing this while other people are in the room. You know what I mean? She closed the doors and said, "I am all yours." So she's
I see what you're saying. So it says the a witness testified, and it's interesting because it's washada shahadu or shahadan. So he and testified a witness. So you're saying there's some level of perception here from like the stairs or behind or
what I think is because she shut the doors and said like I'm all yours, you know. So I think she secluded him. But then there was this running, this fleeing. You know what I mean? So I guess when they burst out of the room and then he's running, you know what I mean? I think they saw Joseph fleeing and her pursuing him. You get what I'm saying? Like that's my because if they're witnesses, if God here is saying like a witness from among her family, and the word shahid is used, then that means they must have been there to observe that. So that's the only instance I can think that they would observe it. You know, like maybe they were in the hallway when they burst out. You know, this is my thoughts. I'm not certain. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Okay, my understanding of this is the people that were called, that were present when the judgment is being passed to know who is wrong, who is guilty, or who is right. I think that is where he became a witness. Among those people around who were to judge this incident of one who is molesting who, I think this is where he became a witness. So a member from her own family is experienced, is knowledgeable, and he is the one who made this suggestion that if you know cloth is torn from behind, then she's guilty. But if it is in the front, then she is right. So I don't think it's because he witnesses whatever transpired between the woman and Joseph in the room. But no, when they were called as a family to judge between this issue, so that was when he became a witness. That is my own understanding.
to talk about verse
Hey,
20. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Naveed, the definition of a witness is somebody who sees the crime, right? That is the definition of a witness. So that does it opens up an interesting avenue that this witness who saw it did not come out and say, "Hey, I saw what happened, and this is what it was." They strategically said, "Hey, take this into observation. If it's torn from the front or it's torn from the back, this is what happened." So they're protecting themselves, and that actually opens up the avenue to where he actually gets put into prison again because there wasn't somebody who came out as an eyewitness to the account.
Good. I like this choice of words when you say eyewitness. I don't think the verse says he was an eyewitness. That's something we have to look at also.
That's the definition of the word witness. Somebody who sees something happen.
I don't think in every situation a witness
That's
must
the
be somebody
definition
who.
of the word.
Okay.
Yeah,
Look it up.
Okay. Let's continue to reflect and see. Yeah.
Look, I
Witness
don't think
implies
so.
observation.
Right. I don't think witness is the definition. Not necessarily, because shahada is a testimony. So when it happened
But the testimony,
and people gathered around,
the testimony is the bearing of witness. And I do
Yeah.
have a verse in favor of what Jerry's saying. It's chapter 21, verse 61. I put it in VC1 chat. It says, they said, bring him before the eyes of all the people that they may bear witness. And also,
I agree with that.
yeah, and
Sorry.
also for adultery, if you have 4 witnesses it kind of does lean in towards what Jerry's saying, because if we're going to say witness is a broader term, then for the accusation of adultery, if you just get 4 people to come and say that they like, you know what I mean, or like that didn't even, were not even there or didn't perceive it in any way, and you're just going to talk, then people can be punished for adultery. Go ahead, Kato. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that. No, never mind.
Salam
Yeah,
alaikum.
please go ahead, Jerry.
I'm not disputing eyewitness
Right.
being part of. Yeah, I'm not
That's right.
disputing eyewitness being part
Hold
of
on.
the.
Look at it this way. So when it happened and people started gathering up, okay. Sorry, I was saying something. And so that happened and people started gathering up. And the wife of the government could
Hey,
speak.
Kato, your sound's
Yeah,
broken.
you have to put your mouth next to the microphone
Yusuf
so
could
that.
Oh no, it's not a.
speak for
No. Her sound's broken. Kato, your sound's broken. I'm
and
sorry.
they the government
Your
used to
sound's
believe.
broken.
So
I'm gonna mute you.
right. So okay.
She's not listening on her
Okay,
phone.
great.
Like, so
Don't-
when you
Yeah,
talk,
it's okay.
you have to have your
It's
mouth
okay.
next
No,
to the
no.
microphone.
Hold on, Jerry.
Yeah.
Hold on, Jerry. No, she has a connection issue. It's not the distance from her mic. Go ahead, brother.
Doesn't sound like a
Ibrahim.
connection issue to me. It sounds like somebody who's got a microphone that's far away, and the microphone is trying to pick up something else
All
besides
right,
the
it's
voice.
okay. Okay, brother Ibrahim, did you want to say something? Go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to say.
Your sound is broken
Witness.
too. I'm so sorry. Your
Yeah, but
sound's
he can.
broken too.
Oh my God.
Everybody's sound is broken today. What's going on? It's
Did
the
Brother
solar
Jerry
eclipse. The solar eclipse.
did Brother Jerry finish his comment? I also had a comment. I want to see if Brother Jerry's finished. Perhaps seems like he is. Yeah, I wanted to add that the wife of the governor probably thought they were alone, but obviously they weren't. And I think this brings up a really important point that God says that you shall bear true witness, that even when it's your relatives, your family, even yourself, and it can be a very challenging thing to do. I think it really takes that strength because we have biases. And at the same time, this is what God is telling us, that we need to bear true witness. Even if it's ourselves or our family and we have a bias, we need to overcome that and we need to do what's right. And rather than supporting someone that, we like, or, if somebody that we like is saying something or doing something, but it's wrong, we need to say what's right, because God is our Lord and Master, and that's what's better for us and everyone. And we see how in this case and God controls everything. At the same time, this is God's system, that it could have saved his neck. Like he's a servant here, and it would have been really could have been very dangerous and harmful for him if it seemed like he was seducing the governor's wife. And so, yeah, the importance of bearing true witness and being careful of our biases, that we don't let our biases drive our actions and speech. Thanks.
Yeah. If nobody, this is an interesting topic, but
Can you hear me now, brother?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that.
No, I cannot hear you, brother. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Ibrahim, what did you do earlier? What did you do earlier that we could hear you just
so
fine?
bad.
You changed something.
And because this is being recorded, and there's so many people, I don't mean to be rude, but we cannot waste time. We just have to keep going.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, brother Ibrahim.
Go ahead, no.
Yeah, your sound's broken. Please, if you could just mute
Go
yourself.
ahead.
Your sound's broken. So
Just add
Brandy
something really quick.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. No, I just wanted to read what Brandy's comment was a few minutes ago. So Brandy put in the chat. I don't think you have to be an eyewitness. Maybe the people in the house overheard some ruckus or disturbance happening in the other room. And that's kind of what Brother Elham was saying. And I agreed with the concept of perception, where it still is a form of witnessing, I guess, but it's a little bit maybe different. But you're still perceiving something.
Yeah, it is perception, but hearing is a very weak form of perception. Unfortunately, you know what I mean. You can hear like a sequence, like, and you've probably seen this on like TV shows or movies where someone was like a witness, but they didn't see it. They just heard a commotion and they came to the wrong conclusions. You know what I mean? Because you can hear like a you can hear someone go, "What the heck are you doing?" And then you hear like a big thud, and then things go quiet. But like that could be a number of things. You know what I mean? Like it could be some guy like putting salt in the tea, and then he knocks over the kettle, and there's a thud or something like that. You know what I mean? It could be a bunch of things. So I don't really know if that's like a good witness. I think that's why like for the Quran, like shahid is usually have been like somebody who was like physically present to observe it with their eyes.
Maybe that's why a witness could only suggest.
Pardon? Oh, the suggestion. Maybe that's what they only suggested. Hey, I don't know. Maybe like
The
they
witness
said.
only suggested.
No,
The witness only
was just
suggested it because they don't want to be brought out as the person who went against the governor's wife.
Oh, that could be another.
That would be dumb.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Brother Dude had a comment.
Yeah, just really quick. It's like, look, the requirement is you have to physically be there. You have to be present. We get into this discussion a lot regarding 7172. They said, "Oh, we saw God. Did we see him with our eyes?" Well, I don't know, what mechanism is, but yes, we were in the presence of God. And we have, so this word shahid, it occurs only 4 times in the Quran. And I'm going to share one of the other occurrences because I feel like it corresponds with what Elham is saying. So Surah 46, verse 10, to say, "What if it is from God and you disbelieve in it? A witness from the children of Israel has borne witness to a similar phenomenon." So this witness is someone who is, there. They were present for the ordeal. They come up with this suggestion. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not a complicated thing.
So Asar put in the chat, this is an expert witness. But expert witness is someone that has specialized knowledge, skills, and education for a particular field is brought for this. So are we saying that this family member is an expert in shirts being torn and how they relate to attempted molestations? You know what I mean? I don't know if that would be a thing. That's why I struggle. Like I will, I struggle to make that connection, even though I would like it. If it worked. Well, Cato wrote that I don't think it's related because it was behind closed doors, so likely there was actual eyewitness that. But even then, is it possible that there was a hole in the wall or door or something and someone's peeking through, but they couldn't really see exactly what happened? You know what I mean? So it is interesting in that regard.
I had a comment, follow up on a comment that was made earlier. She thought it was a good point about 22, that this is, knowledge, wisdom, a reward for righteousness. We thus reward the righteous. And so this is I think it's a key point that, these are things that we want, and the way to get there is righteousness. And Quran tells us what that looks like. So there's a lot of verses. One passage that I pulled is 25, Surah 25, it goes actually from 63 to 74. I would like to read that, inshallah, if that's okay. Traits of the righteous. The worshippers of the most gracious, and these are things for all of us, including myself, to strive for. May God help us. The worshippers of the most gracious are those who tread the earth gently, and when the ignorant speak to them, they only utter peace. In the privacy of the night, they meditate on their Lord and fall prostrate. And they say, "Our Lord, spare us the agony of hell. Its retribution is horrendous. It is the worst abode, the worst destiny." When they give, they're neither extravagant nor stingy. They give in moderation. They never implore beside God any other God, nor do they kill any soul, for God has made life sacred, except in the course of justice. Nor do they commit adultery. Those who commit these offenses will have to pay. Retribution is doubled for them on the day of resurrection, and they abide therein humiliated. Exempted are those who repent, believe, and lead a righteous life. God transforms their sins into credits. God is forgiver, most merciful. Those who repent and lead a righteous life, God redeems them, a complete redemption. Additional traits of the righteous. They do not bear false witness. When they encounter vain talk, they ignore it. When reminded of their Lord's revelations, they never react to them as if they were deaf and blind. And they say, "Our Lord, let our spouses and children be a source of joy for us, and keep us in the forefront of the righteous." These are the ones who attain paradise in return for their steadfastness. They receive therein with joyous greetings and peace. Thanks. May God help us to be among them.
Peace be upon you. I want to share a personal experience. We have this Joseph. He sees a sign or proof, and he gets God diverts him from the sin. God doesn't allow him to come. My personal experience is about with the signs and superstitions. I think they can be idols. Like if you are, this is my opinion and based on my experience, but if they start like deciding everything in your life, or you are deciding everything according to a sign or superstition you have, I think that becomes your idol, your master. Because when angels prostrated before Adam, they were actually worshiping God because they were obeying, they were worshiping the source of command, source of order. So if you are taking orders and making every decision in your life, maybe not everything, but a lot of things, to some sort of sign or superstition, that's idol worship, I think. What do you think? I wanted to share this because first I wanted to share, maybe somebody had experienced something like this or will experience something in the future, so it will be a warning for them. And also maybe I had the wrong opinion, so I wanted to share this so you can evaluate my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. And also we entered the second half of the Quran study. So you can ask questions or make comments about any verses and any topics, not just related to the verses that we read today. We have another 50 minutes remaining for that. And while we're here, I wanted to ask everyone to make sure they're signed up for the event, for the Grand Quran Study. We do have 91 people signed up on a consistent basis. now with this new system that once you sign up, you just remain signed on forever until you remove it. So if you haven't signed up yet, please sign up for that in VC1-chat. Okay. I also wanted to announce that we have several new submitters, including Sister Brandy. Congratulations, peace, and welcome, Sister Brandy. It's great to have you. Congratulations on becoming a submitter. Did you want to say anything? God bless you.
I just want to thank you and say hello to all my new brothers and sisters, and that I'm more than happy to be here. This is what I've been craving, I think, all my life, so it feels really good to be here. Thank you.
Congratulations, Brandy. Welcome to the family.
Yes, congratulations. Peace be upon you and welcome.
And I do want to point out, yeah, God bless you. And I do want to point out the way the sister came was through a collaborative effort by God's leave. God's doing everything. And I had made a post a while back on Reddit, on the Quraniyun Reddit. That's the Quranist subreddit, inviting people to the submission server. And she saw that, and also Sister Night Angel, who's not here right now, had also helped reach out to her and bring her here. And so I've said this before, and I say it again, please do not lose opportunities to invite people. If anyone's interested or potentially interested, or you think there's a platform that can get people to submission, invite them. Please put the link to the submission server, bring them here. We have plenty of people that would love to have a conversation with them and benefit. And also, after she joined the server a few days ago, it was just the day before the Night of Destiny, praise God, and she witnessed a debate I had regarding Quranism and submission, because she had been interested in Ramadan, fasted a few days, I think 8 days, and then the Quranist convinced her that Ramadan's in September and she needs to stop fasting. So she did stop fasting, and she was confused after rejecting Hadith and trying to follow Quran alone. And I had a debate that day regarding Quranism and why it's wrong and why we need to become submitters. And she says that this, God is doing everything, but this debate did impact her and helped her to make the informed decision of fully embracing submission, accepting the miracle of God, God's messenger of the covenant, and what we know as, true submission, in our way of understanding the Quran. So please don't underestimate your invitation in the ether to invite people. You're more than welcome to share the link for them to come here. We have people on standby to speak to them. Go ahead, please.
I do want to mention that just what I've experienced since I have submitted, just the difference in how I interpret what I'm reading when I read the Quran. It's just night and day difference. It's truly just it feels really good. It makes it a lot easier to just even want and get more excited about reading the Quran, because I feel like now I'm in truth.
Mashallah, you're being guided. Being guided by God.
It gives me chills.
Yeah, exactly. And once we make the decision and want to be guided, God opens those doors. If there was any barrier, that's lifted, so we can understand the Quran, and beautiful.
I really. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
I was just saying that, like, the first couple weeks, I was really probably a month. I just really struggled through and through, and I was terrified. I was confused. I was trying to find, the truth in the wrong people, and I was even messing with divination, and it was like I've never been so confused in my life, and so lost and so scared. And but once I just decided to even let all that go, and just kind of just to kind of reassess what I went through and how I feel now, I was able to process, the experience in a different way, because I was able to like calm down and settle down. And then it was after a few days of that, I was just really craving, just connecting with somebody that had, fairly similar thoughts and beliefs pertaining to truth and the Quran and such, and Jesus and stuff. And then that's when I posted a cry out for help on Reddit. And here I am.
Praise be to God. Yeah.
And
Welcome,
everybody's
sister.
journey is different. If you're willing to share, can you share like what you had posted, or and also, or if you can share like what was really helpful for you, what really impacted you in this process of helping you to become submitter. That might be would be good learning for us, inshallah, if you're up for sharing.
Definitely. Well, a few years ago, I knew that Jesus was not God, and that he couldn't save me from my sin. I knew that. And so when I started trying to search something that just kind of fulfilled me, I knew I couldn't go the Christian way, because mainstream is that Jesus is God, and it made no sense. So I started looking. I came across Islam. But then it was like, this is not that much different than Christianity, because, here it is, Muhammad is supposed to save us from what we've committed. So, and then of course I had it kind of confused with divination, with tarot cards. And so I was getting a lot of misguidance there, but I felt like the Quran verified what I was, the tarot readings that I was getting. Which were like to leave my kid. When I would read the story of Abraham, and he would leave his family and stuff. So when I'm reading that, I'm reading it as if it's verifying that I have to leave my kids, and it was just that kind of confusion. So I the first time I was trying to follow Hadith and Sunnah believers, and there towards the very end, I was just so fed up with it already, and I was scared to let my kids go. So I decided to not pursue it any further. But I did start to kind of open this like different chapter of submission, but I was already pretty well done. And then I just said to God, I was like, I'll be back. I've got stuff that I have to take care of in my life, get my kids back, because I had suffered addiction and lost my children. So I was in the process of that, and I just had to do things my way, and maybe I'll come back. And I held on to all my Qurans the whole time. I don't know why I didn't know why I was saving them, but I felt the need to. And then I started like seeing these signs, and like it was like every video I would come across on YouTube, it was like telling me that I'm blocked and something about my kids and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, this is familiar. So I was like, maybe I just need to revisit the Quran now. And so was going down that same path of Hadith and Sunnah people, because it's like, well, they've got to know something. I don't know anything, and I was scared of the Quran, so I was scared to read it. And then because whenever I was misinterpreting it, and it was scaring the crap out of me. So then the morning of Ramadan, I'm reading, and I felt like God was telling me that I was never going to change, that I'm done, I've lost all my forgiveness, that I'm a hypocrite, to not seek out Muslims, and I hit a bottom, and I started having panic attacks. I thought that I was supposed to kill myself. I, because I felt like all of my sin, like my sin was doubled. So to be alive, I was just harming my place in hell, like making it worse. And then I had to go to the doctor and get put on medicine. I was losing control of my emotions and my thoughts, and I've never went through anything like that before, and I was terrified. And I kept getting these flashes in my head that of hell, and I kept seeing the number 38, and I did know of some kind of thing with the number 19. I wasn't totally aware of it, but I knew like that had to do with like God's number. So, and then like 2 times 19 is 38. So I was like, okay, so God's giving me confirmation I'm going to hell, and that I'm done. And then, but after I had the medicine for about a week, and then I thought, okay, so, and the fact that when I read that and I thought that God was telling me I'm done, it was the morning of Ramadan. So I was like, that's a sign. That's a sign that I can't be forgiven. I'm done. And I wasn't even sure what exactly I did. I just felt like maybe it was because I was choosing to remain with my children, and that my heart still was desiring to have my children. And but then on the 3rd week of Ramadan, I started fasting. I was like, okay, so maybe and I also had been off of the medicine for a few days. I was doing all right. I was still having a little bit of panic attack here and there, but it wasn't too bad. I was calm for the most part. So I was like, okay, so maybe I just need to try and pursue this, and just go at it really slowly, kind of just inch my foot in there a little bit and see how this goes. And it was all right. I wasn't diving too deep into the Quran. I was just, I came across this site, which I think is a Quranist, but he was talking about in the way that we're supposed to read the Quran, and that's really all I've, read into his website. The Lamp of God, or Lamp of God, or something is or Lamp of Islam is
Yeah,
the
that's a
website.
Quranist website.
Yeah, so once I found that out, and I've submitted, and all I really wanted to dive into was just the fact that I was doing it wrong. And within, a few days, I realized that divination was an abomination, and that it was actually idol worship. So of course I was going to be misguided when I'm messing with divination. I've got one foot in the Quran, and I've got one foot in, an abomination and idol worship. And I had to decide that no matter what I go through, no matter what fear that I face, I cannot seek somebody who commits idol worship, which is Hadith and Sunnah followers. So I was like, so then at once I put all that aside, and after just a couple days, and then that's when I put my post out. But I felt like maybe the fasting would be a sign of like trying to seek forgiveness, and that I was trying to practice discipline, like just some sort of way to express myself to God, to show myself like I'm crying. And but then I came across I was invited to this channel or the server, and as soon as I heard about, and I had kind of heard about him before, and I had even ordered, his version of the Quran, but and I've had it all this time, which I think is funny, but it was almost like, God knew I was gonna, well, of course he knew I was gonna come back and that I was gonna need it. And but once I heard Naveed talking about with a couple of sisters about Rashad Khalifa, and giving the scripture that supported him and how we're supposed to practice and such, like the 5 daily prayers and stuff. And that was just right there, was just total proof. That was all the proof that I needed at that point, that I'm on the right path. I'm in with the right people, and that the five prayers a day, that must be the right way, because the messenger said that is how, and he practiced it. So then that means Quranism is wrong. The Quranists who say that, it's just the recitation of the Quran, that it's not the 5 daily prayers, that's not a pillar. So that just was, total proof for me, and I'm sold.
Mashallah, congratulations. Praise God. You were seeking the guidance sincerely, and God guided you, and what a journey. May God continue to guide and bless you and make things easy for you.
The day before I was invited, the day before I was invited to come to this server, I was on the verge of giving up. I was hanging by a thread, and because I just had so much lack of trust for myself, and that I could do this, that I could keep practicing without support, physical support, other people. And I was telling myself, like, maybe I should just give up and get on with my life and just try to accept the fact that I'm going to hell. And I know that was my lack of trust in God. And that was just proof for me that God literally gives you what you are able to bear. There at the end, where I'm really almost convinced that maybe I should just stop and give up, he shed light and gave me guidance there. As long as I just kept my foot down, and I just, no matter how weak I felt, I still stood put. I still, in my heart, was still deciding, I can't give up. I can't give up. I can't go to hell. I can't do this to myself, I have to do what's right. And there, at my weakest, he saved me. So that's amazing. That just, and then, like Naveed was saying, it was the day before the night of Destiny when I submitted. So it's just, I feel like there's constant reassurance from God that I'm all right. Everything's going to be okay, as long as I, as long as I don't break the covenant, and as long as I keep pursuing Him and righteousness, that everything's going to be okay. He's got my back.
Yes, mashallah, that's it.
That's really good. I'm actually hosting a seminar on giving the message. I think it's going to be next Sunday after the Quran study. I'm putting a link for that in the chat. If you'd like to sign up, 17 people are signed up for the Spreading Submission seminar. If you're interested, you can join. And basically, I think this is good opportunity, like we said, to remember just to invite people to submission. And then when we have debates here, recognize that a lot of times we are too focused on the other person, but we do not value the importance of the bystanders or the people that are in the middle or trying to make up their minds. And this sister was there, and so many people that are there could say, well, look, the person that Navid's talking to, debating, their mind's already made up. Why are you wasting time, this and that? And this is a perfect example of, look, someone is watching and listening, and it's affecting them what they're hearing. So we get credit, we can learn, and we can, by God's leave, persuade the people that are witnessing this event, are on the fence or interested, to hear God's message.
You
and
know, even
arguments for
hearing
submission. Yeah.
even hearing the debating with that Rashad guy, and I was getting so annoyed. I had an hour and a half of sleep. I was really wanting to feel connected and like ask questions about, the Quran and like dive in and, just really take advantage of the just the fact that of something awesome that I experienced with you guys on the Night of Destiny. That was just such an awesome experience. So, but then he comes along and it's like, no, and he stayed and he stayed and he stayed and he stayed. But then and so many times I was like, I'm just gonna back out of here and dive into something else. But I stayed and I just kept listening in as much as I could and trying to understand as much as I could. All the mathematics, kind of had me in a daze a few times, but I learned a lot. I did, and I felt like I just kept gaining more proofs and signs from God that I'm in the right spot, that I'm, just confirmation of things that I've been wondering about, questions that I've been asking God in my head, and I just kept feeling like, it was just more confirmation on top of confirmation. So then it was like, oh, okay, well, it's not so bad. I'll keep listening.
God bless you.
Mashallah. And I think also you strove, you started fasting and like following, like responding to God's call, like by striving to follow his commands. And yeah, it's like, I think that's powerful too. Like when we do that, when we take a step toward God, and God will take multiple steps towards us. Praise God. Thank you for sharing all that. May God bless you.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, God bless you. Congratulations. Okay. So does anyone have any questions or comments on topics they want to discuss?
Other people that joined?
Go ahead. What's that?
Were you going to mention other people that joined? Has anybody else joined?
Oh, yeah. Brother Hisham also became a submitter. I'm not sure if you guys met him. He's a wonderful submitter. You're from Algeria, right? I think you became a submitter a couple weeks ago, so maybe I already introduced you. But Brother Hisham became a submitter. He's a native Arabic speaker, and he's wonderful, and he's been helping us. How you doing, brother?
Peace be upon you, everyone. Thanks, Navid, man. I appreciate it, and I hope I can be as useful as I can.
I feel like I announced you already, right? Like a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think you did before. You did before, but it doesn't hurt for a second time.
No problem. Yeah, it's great to have you. God bless you. And then also, we have
Thanks,
brother.
man. God bless you.
God bless you. Also, we have brother Julius here, who's been a submitter for 32 years, and he just recently rejoined us and is on the server. God bless you, brother Julius. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Naveed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Go ahead, please.
Oh, yeah, thanks for introduction, and put a note. Didn't get any responses, but that's okay. But Peter shared a bunch of, I think 9 of his blogs concerning the New Testament, and I shared them with my wife, who's a hardcore Catholic, and made some progress. But she, for some reason, she thinks that Jesus isn't just a prophet. So any further advice I can get would be appreciated.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that. I just wanted to introduce any other new people too. Let's see. Brother Shahab, and brother Hossein or Shayed and sister Shakira from Bangladesh. If any of you guys want to speak, you can go ahead too. Okay. All right. Peter, did you want to add, or I guess Peter or anyone else, do you want to answer or respond to Julius' question?
Yeah, I gave Julius the resources I had kind of put together and compiled. I don't know if anyone else wants to contribute. I did recommend a book that I find very good on the topic. It's very thorough, and then also Restitutio. It's a Unitarian a blog podcast. They got amazing material. Got a lot of really good talks and lectures there as well. I think the tactic is to first have them denounce the Trinity. Once they denounce the Trinity, I think then there's hope, right?
One thing that's been great is one of my wife's friends, who I think was also Catholic, her 17 or 18-year-old son told her recently that he's converted to Islam. So my wife reached out to me to get information to share with the son, Oliver. So maybe through osmosis she'll pick it up.
The Sunnis, we have to get them to renounce Hadith, and then with the Christians, we have to get them to renounce the Trinity.
And perhaps the knowing the history can be helpful. That came about at the concept of, if my understanding is that that came about at the Nicene conferences, like more than 300 years after Jesus. That concept of Trinity. So that concept of we want to follow in the footsteps of Jesus and practices he was practicing, and he was worshiping God alone. Like even in the Bible, there's verses that show that so we want to worship God alone, like Jesus, rather than idolizing Jesus. And so that idea that knowing that these paths, Christianity, Islam, have been corrupted, and being able to take it back to the original pure version, that's something that may help. And ultimately, we know it's between them and God. Like they have to truly want the guidance, and then God has to guide them. We can pray, and we it's good to do our part, because maybe God wants to use us as a channel. So it's good to be open, keep the doors open, see them as potential believers, and when it's appropriate and it seems like there's openness, to share and invite, and to know that everybody has a time. So it may seem like no way that they're gonna budge, but it just may be it just may be a matter of time, and they need to go through what they need to go through, experience what they need to experience, to be able to see the truth clearly. And I think being a good example, I think that's huge. What we say is one thing, but what we do, how we conduct ourselves, how we treat others, that speaks volumes. And so, and Brother Dude, if you can, you mentioned, I think, a couple of resources. What were those again? If you can share, please.
It's a Godwin. I can put in the content sharing, or actually I'll DM it to you, because it's a lot. It's just a number of articles and reference material.
Thank you. Praise God. And God bless you. Reward your striving.
Assalamu alaikum. By God's leave and my experiences as a psychologist, which is equivalent to 50 or more years of practice with individuals. When it comes to belief, submission to God, the worship of God, one of the things that God guided me to is to be able to make the distinction between the spiritual vortex or the love of God, which God and his awareness, which is placed in us as innate, and the conditioning and indoctrination that a person receives throughout life. And for many people, when they are challenged with reflecting on the belief in the Trinity, and you tell them that Jesus is not God, this is seen initially as a form of intimidation, or it's a threat to their core fundamental belief in God. And by God's leave, what I have done in the past, simply in terms of talking with others, is pointing out to them that their core fundamental belief in the existence of God has nothing to do with their belief in the Trinity, a belief that Jesus is God. That is condition, that is indoctrination. And as you all know, what I'm saying is that that's a satanic ploy where Satan knows he cannot remove the awareness and the core connection between God and the human spirit. But what he does is that he perverts it via this conditioning. And that, God willing, you see, when you help a person, of course, God controls all things. When you show a person that their belief, their core fundamental belief in God and love of God is innate in their nature, and you show them that this has nothing to do with their basic sense of commitment to the belief in the Trinity, God willing, this proves to be a tremendous help. And this is very important. God willing, I'd like to participate in that seminar in terms of Naveed, what you were talking about earlier as well. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Brother Douglas. It's great having you. And also, I had to go, but I really appreciate you coming yesterday and helping with the discussion we had on the initial chapters and the mathematical miracle of the Quran.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, we have another 15 or so minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Brother Douglas, for sharing your expertise and your input with us. I wanted to add that another thing that I've learned, I found powerful by God's grace, is starting with the common ground. You know, if at the beginning, or, you know, whatever the focus is on, okay, no, these are wrong and this is wrong, and that could be like intimidating, or may not end up being fruitful. However, starting with the common ground and starting with what the two people can share peacefully, you know, so if there's common ground, if there's things that, you know, spiritual things that one can do together that they're open to, embracing that, and then little by little, one can, as you know, there's openness and the opportunity arises, one can kind of address these other things. But once there's a rapport and a bond there, a connection there, that can be very helpful in facilitating the process and my understanding experience. Thanks. Hope that helps.
Okay.
Should we share updates?
Yeah,
If anybody
please.
doesn't have anything else, I'd like to say something.
Please go ahead,
Go for it.
Rose.
Go for it.
Okay, so I've been trying to work on doing these classes on Saturdays and getting the administrators on board with that. And then also any of the mods or anybody, and actually that's a submitter that's interested in either running a class or attending a class, please message me this week because I'm going to try and put a schedule together for the following week so that we can start doing this. So anybody that wants to volunteer to do a class or anybody that has an idea for a class, something maybe that you're struggling with as a submitter that maybe you don't get the opportunity to speak up or you're just someone that doesn't like to speak up often, but there are topics that you'd like to have covered or there's things you'd like to be more knowledgeable about so that you can participate in more of the debating and grow your soul and strive better, please message me this week. I will be trying to reach out to everybody, God willing, and get some sort of a schedule set up for next week. I'm also going to try to do a weekly women's group. I know before we've been having like a ladies' night where the women just kind of get together and chat and we can talk about, shopping and hair and all those things. But I'd like to also do one that's a weekly, if not bi-weekly, if I have enough interest in women's topics within submission. I know we always have a lot of questions about, like menses and praying and fasting and what the different roles are, what maybe some of the different requirements are for women versus men within submission. So if you're a female on here and you're interested in that, please let me know so I can see the interest level on how many classes we should do, and then shoot me some topics on things that you maybe would like to discuss with other females, but maybe you're not comfortable with discussing in front of the gentlemen submitters, and we can get that going too. God willing, this will be really beneficial, especially for the newer submitters, and then also for the people that are just kind of less likely to speak out. This will maybe help them to become more confident and be able to participate more in the debating or in just the general conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rose, for setting that up. Although to be fair, yeah, you already have two new people in the chat that are interested. To be fair, I never attended the ladies' nights, right? I don't think they were just talking about shopping and stuff. Maybe others can testify.
No, we weren't. Thank you.
Yeah, so that wasn't very nice.
That's not what I meant. I just meant like it's not. I wanted it to be more structured. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. But I did want to ask Sister Hoshi if you could please set up the new ladies' night event because people ask about it and then I have nowhere to direct them. So I think it needs to be on the calendar for the event so that people can actually sign up and get notified when it is, even if it's in 2 weeks in advance or 3 weeks in advance. Make the event.
Will
so that
do.
we can
Thank
direct
you.
them to. Thank you so much. And other people also are making events. I don't see Sister. Oh yeah, Sister Medina. Please, if you can make the Quran studies in Russian. If anyone knows anybody who is interested in Russian or knows Russian, so please join Sister Medina's Quran study with Sister Mila and others. And Sister Mila and Sister Medina, others. If you make the events, please make the events right away so that we can direct them to those events. Because we have the event schedule calendar. Okay, that's wonderful. Go ahead, Peter. Did you have more updates for us? Oh, Rose, did you want to say something? You're unmuted.
No, I'm sorry. I just forgot to remute myself.
No, you're fine. Brother Saeed also raised submission recently, but he's deafened right now. But he's a wonderful submitter. He's on there every day helping people and explaining submission. I just love how calm he is. Yesterday, he spent about 5 or 6 hours discussing with the math miracle with a Sunni enemy combatant who comes here to debate about submission or trying to attack submission. But very calm, very collected, very intelligent, very bright, and he's only been a submitter for I think a week or two. And he's been great. He's deafened right now, but hopefully we get to hear him soon. Peter, did you want to give more updates?
Yeah, just a report on my end. Did a podcast episode about can the prophet hear us in the context of a salawat. So that's online. Um, and also just two blog posts. One is this contrast between Abi Lahab, that's mentioned in the Quran, and the Dajjal, who's not mentioned in the Quran and is mentioned in the Hadith. How I'll give you the punchline. Abi Lahab could have refuted the Quran by simply stopping his opposition, but he didn't. The key character in the Hadith that they claim is the Dajjal, who is supposedly a disbeliever, the Antichrist. In their own Hadith, Sahih Hadith, he ends up embracing the religion. So it's like it shows that the whole narrative is just like a farce. I'll link to that article, and then yesterday, mashallah, I had I've been going through reading the interest to reread Genesis, and it talks about these various covenants, and I wanted to just do a kind of a look at the different covenants that are made in the Bible, and it's a very long article. I feel like there's still some updates to be made. There's some really interesting connections how the covenant is the Quran, and it was fulfilled by the messenger of the covenant. God willing, I'll link to both articles. I wanted to pass it. I don't know if they're on, but McClicken, he wrote a really good article recently, and Jonathan, I don't know if you want to give a update on your end. I'll
just
pass
real
it
quick.
around.
Sorry. If we before we move on to another subject, I just want to say this seems to be one of your most popular videos because I'm just looking at the views. It already has 1,500 in 3 days versus one is 1,000 in 2 weeks, 1,000 in 4 weeks. This seems 1,000 in 2 months. This is a really good video. You did a really good job. I know you put effort in choosing the image. For some reason, I had not put a comment in there. I do invite people to go to that video. The link is in the chat. It's the one that's titled, Can the Prophet Hear Us? This is a great episode. I put my comment on there. If you could put a good comment or like my comment and like the video, it's really helpful. This is already being very successful. And this is a good way to invite people to submission. It already mentions the server in the Discord. And I'm sorry, it mentions in the video, it mentions Discord and also has a link to Discord on there. So this is one of the key ways to bring people to the message, to the server and to the message is from the Quran Talk podcast, which we really should be supporting. So that's what I wanted to say about that. This is really good episode. I think this may go viral, and that's going to make a big impact on the movement, God willing. Jonathan has been doing some really good research on the Hadith. John, did you want to share some of your findings with us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, so I've just been looking over some of the past tweets I've made about some of the Hadith. I just recently made them into a blog, so I can put that in the VC one. And essentially,
can you make it into a clickable link?
Yeah. 1 second. Okay. So essentially,
that link doesn't work. Right?
Yeah,
I think you
I
misspelled it.
Misspelled one of the words.
I just want people to be able to go there, check it out. You have to edit the. Yeah, you can delete the other ones. There, this is good. It has a thumbnail and everything.
Yeah. So I haven't finished making all of the articles yet, but one of the ones that I just finished up a couple minutes ago was the Hadith about apostasy killings. So essentially, there's a Hadith that says if somebody leaves the religion, that it's okay to kill them. And so I managed to track back all of the isnads back to a man named Ikramah, which was a slave of Ibn Abbas. a prominent hadith transmitter. And Ikramah, in a lot of other sources, is known to be someone called a Khawariji. So someone who is a part of this sect of Islam that allows killings of, non-combatants and just devious people who just essentially allow killings. And they were part of a small sect, one of the first splinter groups of Islam. And so the hadith goes back to him, and then I counter it with a bunch of Quran verses that say, killing is wrong, essentially. So that's up on the blog. There's also a bunch of tweets about other hadith that have been debunked. So yeah, I guess check that out, inshallah.
Hey, is anyone else having an issue? It's not loading for me for some reason.
What's not loading for you?
The Hadith Critica blog.
Yeah, it works fine for me. Did you try the new link he
Oh,
just
that's
uploaded?
okay. Maybe it's just my end.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask Jonathan to just delete the other one above that. I can just do it. I deleted it. Yeah, if you click on the one with the thumbnail and everything, it's really good. And you go there and he has the latest post listed. He also has the Quran Talk episode on preservation of Quran versus Hadith. And this is a very important topic because it comes up a lot. One of the common things we hear on here is, well, look, we believe in the Hadith because it's preserved by the same people that preserved the Quran. And it's important for us to be educated as to why that is not the case.
Anyone? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, brother dude, we can hear you.
Okay. Just one time, I didn't know if it was the internet connection.
Yeah.
Jonathan, God bless you for striving. Definitely share the material on the other channels too when you publish. I recommend for people to subscribe to the blog, so then this way when he publishes one, you get notified. It helps with the traction, so more people organically find this material. I don't know. Is McClicken on?
Yeah, McClinton is here. He just might not be able to speak, but I saw him react to your post in the chat.
Okay.
He's probably busy right now. He put an article, link to an article for the Quran affirming the key premise of the ontological argument for God's existence.
Yeah, that was the one I wanted to bring up. So he just published this. Definitely worth subscribing to his blog, supporting the content.
Wonderful. That's really good. He's not in a good place to speak, but others are. I also wanted to welcome our brothers from Dubai community of submitters. We have brother Raju and brother Hussein. Did either of you guys want to speak? No problem. And I also wanted to congratulate the Malaysian community for helping. They finished all of the Quran in 19 days of Ramadan, and then they moved on to reading the appendices. And today they are going to read Appendix 24, Part 3, at 3:30 Pacific time. So in 3 hours, they're going to read Appendix 24. They're doing a very, very thorough read and analysis of all the information in the 38 appendices of God's Messenger of the Covenant. I put that link for the event in VC1-chat. And I wanted to thank Sister Zubaida and Sister Farah and Sister Taratai for helping with this. Also, Brother Zainal has been very helpful in facilitating this event, as well as Sister Kato. She's also been helping with this, and Brother Saeed. He's deafened right now, but he's a great reader, Brother Saeed. If you get a chance to listen to him, you'll know what I'm talking about. But Sister Cattle's also been helping with this event, and it's a great event. They're covering a lot of good material and really thoroughly analyzing the information there. So it's really good, very beneficial session. And I think they should be done. They probably are going to do 5 or 6 appendices today, and then they're going to finish the whole thing by tomorrow, Monday. So it's going to be finished. So that's the Ramadan reading, the entire 114 chapters and 38 appendices information. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, so in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, we had a lot of local things happening. So haven't been doing the Saturday and Sunday usual studies, so this kind of been on hold. But we'll probably resume, inshallah, this coming weekend. So next weekend, Saturdays. Study for about an hour, followed by meditation, and then Sundays Quran study, and those will be posted, inshallah, in the event section by next weekend. So people who are interested in that can be on the lookout for that. It's a good opportunity to nourish the soul and discuss verses and reflect on them and share and learn in kind of a smaller setting. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. We also had a great Night of Destiny on here. It was the most successful Night of Destiny, very powerful, nonstop activity. It was really good commemoration. Rose, you want to talk? Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Did I do something?
Did you want to? Yeah, you unmuted. Do you want to talk about your first Night of Destiny as submitter on here? What was that like for you?
Sure. It was absolutely wonderful. And the funny thing is I still have the chants in my head, and I'm even to this morning, I was just cleaning my house and I'm still like chanting the chants. It's so wonderful. I don't know, a lot of you and on here I've had conversations with, and I'm kind of just a very matter of fact kind of person. I'm not an overly emotional or woman in general, and I literally couldn't stop crying. It was so overwhelmingly beautiful. I felt lighter. I felt so connected to everyone and just connected to the whole world around me. And I am so grateful to God for bringing me into this server and allowing me to share such an important night for all of us with such great people. Alhamdulillah. I don't think if I was all by myself, I probably wouldn't have done it. I was a Sunni for 16 years. We never did it once. Also because we didn't have any guidance on exactly what night it was. So it was just kind of conjecture on which night to do it on. So the fact that I know that it was for sure that night, and I was getting those rewards, and my sins were being lifted, and I was sharing it with all of you lovely people that I just have so much love for. I could not have asked for a better night. God bless you all.
God bless you. That was my best Night of Destiny ever. I really liked it too. It was fantastic. I also wanted to thank Brother Talant for his efforts. He's been working really hard to get people to join the server on the social media, I think particularly on Twitter. He's been making tweets with the server link on, I guess, famous accounts. Thank you very much for that, Brother Talant.
Anytime, brother. Glad to help.
Okay, anybody else want to share or ask
You
questions?
said there was a recording from the night, brother?
We do have the recording for the Night of Destiny. Absolutely.
Is that posted somewhere?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the recording. I'm going to put it in the chat. This was a great Night of Destiny. Actually, Mr. Tano recorded that. He recorded about 9 hours of it, I believe. I'm putting that in VC1-chat. You can
you put
listen
it
to
in
that.
content sharing as well? Might be easier to access later, if possible.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Where's the content? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, it was it was good that he was able to. I see about 7 hours there just now, and it was good. And we had good discussions, good sharings, and had a great time. So
Yeah,
yeah, I put
salam
that.
alaikum.
Yeah, peace be
Salam alaikum.
upon you. Yeah, how are you
Yeah,
doing? How's your night of
mashallah.
destiny?
It was awesome. It was great to see, mashallah, all submitter from different places were joining, and it was just really good, different than previous ones, which has been local, and it was great night of destiny, mashallah. And maybe inshallah, for following years, we can also add commemorations. Each person prepare some commemoration as well.
That's a great suggestion. I totally agree. No, this was great, and because I did Night of Destiny both last year and the year before on Discord, and this was the best one. It was so good, and it's getting even better. And I was actually surprised because previous year, the first year we did it, I think there was like 4 or 5 people. Then last year we had 10 or 12, and then this year we had consistently 30, 40 or more people. So it's growing exponentially, praise God. And I'm just really excited for the future. And just, it was so good to be able to share, but also everyone has their privacy. If you want to prostrate or eat or whatever, that was very convenient.
Yeah,
So that was-
mashallah. It was very nice. Yeah, mashallah.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments they want to share or anything? The Quran study time is over, but everyone's welcome to share or stay or can talk about anything anybody likes to talk about. And that link was shared in VC1-chat for the Night of Destiny recording. Any topics anybody wants to discuss? Miss Renee, how are you doing? Peace be upon you. Did you want to talk? I see you typing. Do you want to say something?
Since nobody is saying anything, I was just reflecting on the passage that we read. This was so amazing. So many lessons, and one of the things that's striking is that the example that God gives of the governor and how he responds to this incident where it appears that there's the evidence that his wife tried to seduce her servant, and so Surah 12 verse 28, when her husband saw that his garment was torn from the back, he said, "This is a woman's scheme. Indeed, your scheming is formidable. Joseph, disregard this incident. As for you, my wife, you should seek forgiveness for your sin. You have committed an error." So this is a very, I imagine, very difficult situation to find yourself, discover that your spouse tried to seduce someone else. And so it was not only that this thing was about to happen between two people, that there's that betrayal, but that the spouse was the one who was actually initiating the whole thing. And he could have gotten angry and hurt both of them and his soul in the process. But his response is really amazing and an example. And I think it actually God demonstrates for us what Surah 4, I think it's 434, discusses, that God tells the men that if you experience, so this is Surah 4, verse 34, usually away from the chat, but can post that so people have it. Let's see if I can do that quick. And then we'll post footnotes that the middle of well, maybe I'll read from the beginning. The subtitles: do not beat your wife. The men are made responsible for the women, and God has endowed them with certain qualities and made them the bread earners. The righteous women will cheerfully accept this arrangement, since it's God's commandment, and honor their husbands during their absence. If you experience rebellion from the women, you shall first talk to them. Then you may use negative incentives, like deserting them in bed. Then you may, as a last alternative, beat them. If they obey you, you're not permitted to transgress against them. God is most high, supreme. And the footnote beautifully explains this approach of effectively stopping this process, this problem in society of domestic violence, which is usually against women, by giving the men alternatives, which is a lot more effective than just saying, don't do this. And we see how God gives us an example of that in the Quran through the governor. Praise God. Let's share that. Thanks.
Salam alaikum. Mashallah, that was beautifully said. I also want to mention that at the time of Prophet Muhammad, or prior to his messengership, women had no value. They were not even counted as human, the way they were treated. And then Prophet Muhammad, we know there is a freedom of choice and freedom to choose the religion, right? So there was this slavery, they were killing their baby girls. There is no force behind religion. It's not like that if they don't accept it. It's not like if Prophet Muhammad said, from now on, directly release all the slaves, don't beat women, and they have equal right. Nobody would have listened. They were truly a society with, they have no value for slaves, for women. So that's why, Prophet Muhammad at that time is discouraging it, giving alternative. And also that's why they're not saying all of a sudden release all the slaves. So if you commit this sin, release the slaves. So at least this way, they at least listen to the message. And then there is a smooth transition from where they were to coming into a message. Even these days when people ask me that even in US a few decades ago women finally got the right to vote. I keep saying that you should the perception must be right. You should consider yourself 1400 years ago in that society, and the message got, there is no force. It's not like police is going to come and take them. So the message, they're trying to give the message and be inviting. So at least they listen to the message. And even, about killing their baby girls, God says, in hereafter, I'm going to ask these girls, what did they do? So there is no force that, whoever does this right now is going to be killed or prosecuted.
Mashallah. Good points. Thank you for sharing, Sister Bless. Yeah, it's important to look at the context of society and things.
It's important to have the right perception, consider yourself in that situation, that time and know that there is no force in religion, and they wanted to be inviting, considering that. And also about the governor's wife, that was beautifully said. I want all of us to notice that one party had no interest, was being forced, which was Joseph, and he was consistently running away and even asking God to provide exit, to go to jail, to so it was not like both parties were involved. One party was holding back, and also from when the governor found, then there was a boundary, so it brought to the light, and there was a separation between, so there was a boundary set, so it was not like leave them to be the same way as prior to the finding. Once it was found, there was a boundary set.
Does anyone else have anything they want to bring up? Comments, topics, thoughts about the Quran, religion?
Peter, I was wondering how the discussions with Adip went. I saw a video on YouTube, and I also saw that he participated in a Discord meeting.
Yeah. We reached out to him. This was years ago. Twofold. One is basically getting this the Quranist perspective. And then two is also just documenting a lot of this kind of. He has a lot of historical documentation from Rashad. Basically, he shared with us. We took pictures of, recorded, and just kind of shared it. Just made it more readily available. But I mean, it went well. It was one of those things, trying to understand his perspective. What we published was just like a short conversation, but we're with him all day, and I'd say kind of how it ended was he just genuinely didn't see the function of the messenger as kind of we understand it. He saw him as if, oh, this is just a guy who studied really hard and had some interesting kind of findings. Which was just a different take, from our understandings. Like, no, God revealed information to him. And it was his job to disseminate that information. I don't know if Navid's on, if you want to add anything else to that.
That's accurate. I think the biggest reason was obviously to get the materials. We didn't go just to hang out with him for the sake of hanging out, right? Could talk otherwise. So I've known Edip for years, probably 10, 15 years personally, and then 20 years before, in total or more. But because he had content of the messenger, the audios, and also materials in a box that he had hidden in his garage, I wanted to get this stuff. I wanted to have these documents these recordings and documents in my possession. So we went over there. But in terms of the interactions with him, yeah, I mean, it wasn't all recorded, but yeah, it got a little bit more direct the further along we got in the conversation, because, essentially he's the founder of Quranism, right? And that's the biggest rival ideology we have, right? So basically, my understanding is, for Hadith and the Sunni stuff, the writing's on the wall, it's going to expire, everyone's kind of finding out, it's fake, it's untrustworthy, it's not reliable, goes against what God says. We should follow Quran alone. It's the only source of law, that stuff. But when you get to Quran alone, then the Quranism stuff. And he conceded many times to me privately that he understands the direction Quranism is going, and he recognizes it, but I think it's just, he's caused so much damage. And and so it's actually really sad, and I think I felt some regret from him, because he actually prayed behind us when we had to do our prayer, even though he doesn't even believe in the ritual prayer like we do. So he's just trapped himself in this situation, and it's unfortunate because, and it's a double-edged sword too, because, probably millions of people learn about rejection of hadith from Adib, but then there is no destination, because it's like rejecting hadith, and then he just invites them to Quranism or confusion or whatever. So I guess by God's leave, if anyone can, use the things he's saying as a stepping stone to come to submission, that's wonderful. But in terms of him coming to submission, God's doing everything. God can guide whoever wills, but his current trajectory, I don't see it. And then also, just with the Quranism stuff in general, it is a difficult situation and a somewhat competent foe that we deal on the server with on a daily basis. Did that kind of answer your questions, Julius?
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. I'm going to be frank, and I'm not a coward. I don't enjoy talking about somebody behind their back. He's not on here. I think you've seen videos where Rashad stated that Deep's God is his ego. And I sent some of that still when I watched the video that he recorded where you and Peter went to obtain some of those valuable documents.
No, that is accurate. You are accurate, and actually the timing of it is very significant. It's the last audio recording we have from God's messenger of the covenant, just a few days before he was blessed with martyrdom. In the last recording, he tells Adib, unless you change, you're headed for hell, the bottom pit of hell. You worship your ego, you're in a very, very bad place, and you will suffer severe consequences for what you're doing. And the audacity, the hubris in arguing back to God's messenger, it gives me goosebumps. I cannot imagine, I even get scared if, other submitters, say these similar, like these kinds of comments to me, let alone if I'm sitting in the presence of God's messenger and he's telling me I'm on the path to hell. I think I would just fall in prostration, just weeping, probably. But he doubles down. He raised his voice at the messenger. And I have to say, he's in a much worse position, as bad as that situation was with the messenger of the covenant. He's in an exponentially worse situation today, 34 years ago, compared to that incident in January of 1990. Things have gone progressively worse since then. And I just want to add this too. Rashad, in that audio, if you listen carefully, he explains 49:1 and 2, do not place your opinion above God and the messenger. And he says if you do that, all your works are nullified and you end up as a loser. Additionally, what's interesting is that at that time, they're all, at least from my understanding, he says, look, you can even pray 5 times a day, pay your zakat 2.5%, do everything you need to in terms of the practices and stuff, but if you put your opinion above the messenger, all your works are nullified. And I'm assuming, Adib was practicing the same as them at that time. Now, the reason I'm saying it's exponentially worse is because he's rejected all the practices. Now he doesn't even believe in the salat, let alone, whatever, 3 times or whatever. And he believes in the weekly Hajj, which he considers an online debate. Just everything's been completely decimated, destroyed, calling Rashad's translation sexist. harshly criticizing it, and just this whole direction of diverting from the path of God has been extremely unfortunate. So I have no reservations about expressing my views about what is being done with the stuff he's put out, if that makes sense, Brother Julius.
Yes, Brother Naveed, thank you for sharing that.
Was somebody else trying to speak? Brother Shaheen, nice to meet you. I'm glad you're here. If you'd like to introduce yourself and speak, please do. Sister Manija is a wonderful sister here. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Angela, I'm going to head out. Wanted to say peace be upon you. May God bless you all. Thank God for opportunities God provides, including through Discord. Praise God.
Praise God. Does anyone have any other comments, questions, or topics they want to bring up?
Assalamu alaikum. Just like to share with you guys, a couple of days ago, I saw this woman who she posted on TikTok, on the internet. God guided her to traditional Islam. And she made mention of the fact that she had paid zakat for her yearly earnings, not in the context of Ramadan. She had paid, she had come to the awareness that zakat should be paid once a year. This is what the traditional Muslims do, right? At the end of Ramadan, they pay zakat. And this woman had pointed out that she had paid, this is my word, an exorbitant amount for zakat, believing that it should be paid for all of her earnings, for everything she's earned. Now I'm somewhat confused, but my point is that her post and testimony was a very unfortunate example of the extent to which people are initially coming and being introduced to Islam via the internet, and how vitally important it is for us to make some type of bridge, create as we are doing, and continually to build the bridge so that, God willing, people who are being introduced to Islam and curious about Islam, that we do whatever we can by God's leave so that they do not become victimized by these obvious distortions. And I'm thinking about, to be more specific, and I don't want to be long-winded, the traditional Muslims are looking forward to Eid al-Fitr, right? Eid al-Fitr. And
Yes, that's right. Yes.
according to what they believe, it is obligatory to participate in a holiday or a day that God never commanded nor ordained. And Brother Naveed, someone else explain, give a very brief detail of what Eid al-Fitr is supposed to be in the context of traditional Muslims. Thank you.
Peter, you want to talk about that?
Hey, I mean, in all honesty, when we would participate in it, I was a kid, no clue kind of what it is. We'd all show up and stuff. If someone has more context as far as the backstory, how this ended up becoming a thing, by all means, participate.
What's the prevalence of Eid al-Fitr in the Hadith?
I honestly I don't know off the top of my head. Like
Okay, no
it's
problem.
probably like the witr prayer and the nafil
So-
prayer and these other stuff that they
Yeah, so Eid
kind of conjure
al-Fitr,
up.
Eid al-Fitr marks the celebrations at the end of the Ramadan. And there's two, I guess they consider it a mandatory two mandatory days of festivity. That's Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Because they consider it mandatory, I would consider that an innovation.
Wait, what? I thought it was optional.
No. They say that it's mandatory.
Where'd you get that?
Ahmad ibn Hanbal. That's in the Musnad. I'm gonna put the link for that in the chat.
Let me search
Probably.
real quick.
Thank you, Navid, because I've been under the understanding that it was mandatory as well.
Yes.
Not, you see, that they have made it mandatory, essentially. Most Muslims are under the belief that this is ordained by God or mandatory.
Yes. So they believe that these festivities initiated in Medina after the Hijrah. Maybe Jonathan has more information. Oh, Jonathan
I
stepped away,
just
but
searched this. Well,
yeah.
they're talking
So
Salat al-Eid because I remember as she says it was not mandatory for us. It's just a celebration of marking the end of the Ramadan, and I honestly just as a celebration, I don't see a problem with that, right? Like, oh, we had a great month, we were fasting, we said fasting, persevere in the way of God, so that's okay. But I guess in here I'm saying that according to Hanafi scholars, it is obligatory. Same thing with Hanbalis. But according to Malikis and Shafis, it is just sunnah. It's not mandatory. So not all Muslims even believe it's mandatory. The prayer itself, the celebration, I don't think is even like you don't have to celebrate. But I guess they're saying that you have to pray the salat of the Eid, which is kind of weird. But it's not. I don't think it's obligatory for all of them, as far as I know.
yeah. So there's a bunch of hadith on this. But basically, they believe that this is it's a required event. It was mandated by God to the Prophet. And so there's Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, and the Eid itself. And they have additional rules. For example, they believe it's haram to fast on that day. So that's an innovation.
Yes.
When I was in Iran, I had a makeup day, and I just wanted to do my days consecutively. As soon as Ramadan ended, I wanted to fast straight away and get my 2 makeup days done. And so I fasted on the day of Eid al-Fitr. And I don't believe anyone else in the entire country of 70 million people was fasting. I was the only person because they consider it haram.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, I'm curious, Brother Douglas, if you ever celebrated that. Was that ever a thing?
Yes.
Tucson.
Yes, but that was pre-submission.
Right.
See that I was, by the grace of God, I was neither Sunni nor Shiite or any so-called sect, but it's true with all of us. God guides us to submission. And in my initial days in Islam, because I was led to believe that this was, because basically the sources that I depended on were obviously not submission. It was not, I depended on sources that essentially could be regarded as popular practice. And Eid was a popular practice among many Muslims. And so that I identified with it. And it was not until submission that I learned that it was basically an innovation. And what I mean is I'm not talking about being appreciative and celebrating, that God guided you through the Ramadan. That's personal. But I'm in particular, for example, talking about, for example, in many large cities, you find people going to Eid prayer. You may find dozens, hundreds of Muslims going to a convention center saying everybody has to go to Eid prayer. That's clearly an innovation.
Yeah.
That's clearly an innovation. And that's what I'm referring to. See.
So this was not so in Massachusetts you guys never celebrated this?
No, it was we celebrated it, but not to the extent where it was seen as a mandatory. Everybody has to come.
That makes sense.
See, everybody has to come. This is part of obeying God's commands. But of course, people optionally could come together, they could eat, they could revel, and be glad and appreciative and thankful. So the distinction I'm making is between what is optional, showing appreciation and thankfulness, and what is projected as mandatory.
Yeah.
That you see what I'm saying?
Exactly. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly my sentiment also. Even before you said that, I said, look, there's nothing wrong with celebrating the completion of the month of Ramadan, a month of great gift and fast, blessing, gift and fasting from God, this opportunity. Nothing wrong with celebrating that. But it's this concept of these stories, the mandatory nature of it, the false traditions. I don't believe, like you said, first of all, there's no prayers of Eid al-Fitr prayers. It's not mandatory. It's not prohibited to fast at that day. There's nothing to do regarding this. So just a celebration is okay. But yeah, I don't even know if I would call it Eid al-Fitr. You know what I mean? I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that because I don't want to affiliate with that activity if it's indeed just an innovation. Go ahead, brother Sachar.
Yeah, praise God. I did have another question. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments or questions on this specific topic. If you guys have any question about this topic of Eid al-Fitr, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'll ask my question. God willing. Let's see if someone has a question. I suppose no one has any
Yes,
other
go
comment.
for it.
Okay,